Well, hello out there. Thank you so much for joining me. You are watching a live presentation of Be the Boss of Your Money because I want you to be the boss of your money, not your money to be the boss of you. We talk about investing strategy, economics, personal finance, business. Welcome to you. We are going to talk about something very important today, and the value you're going to get out of this is you're going to understand what's driving the stock market right now, what's driving the economy, what do we need to do economically to get out of this. There is so much going on today with regard to economic policy that without it, we would be in more dire straits than we are now. There's a reason why the economy hasn't felt well, it's been very painful for many people, but we've had so much stimulus from both the Federal Reserve and from Congress. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to do a quick market update, and then we're going to get ready for the weekend. So yes, I realize it's only Wednesday, but I don't think I'll be here tomorrow because I usually take off Fridays from the live stream and just send out a blast email. When I say just, it's a pretty big deal, this blast email. Tomorrow is the non-farm payroll numbers for the month of June. They're coming out tomorrow. Unless there's something truly market moving, I won't be here tomorrow on the live stream. If there is something crazy going on and that, earth shattering, then I will definitely be doing a live stream. So let's roll the intro and we're going to get into the most important things that investors need to know about right now. And we're back. Thank you very much for joining me. My name is Mitch Goldberg. If you're watching this in the live stream, like right now, hit me up with any questions that you may have in the comments. I would love to answer your questions. I'd love to interact with you. And if you have any words of wisdom, words of encouragement, those would always be appreciated. By the way, let me know where you are right now. I'd love to know where you're watching this from, not just in terms of what platform, Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn, but let me know what your geographic location. Sometimes they get people from Europe, from Australia, from Asia, and of course, people from all over the United States. And it's it's a cool feeling to know where people are watching from. Let's talk about what's going on right now. There is so much going on. The news going on right now, taking place, is really we are at such a turning point. It's so important. So the quick summary is this. This whole bounce off the bottom, the March 23rd low for the stock market and the economic recovery we saw building up in May and early June, looks like it's being put on hold because more and more states are slowing or halting their economic reopening phases. Some of them are reversing, like Texas and Florida. No alcohol served at bars, no more indoor dining. The city of New York, so NYC, just announced that they will actually not be allowing restaurants to serve indoors. You can still serve outdoors. I just wonder what's going to happen if we're going through this in like December and it's like 30 degrees outside. I wonder how many people are going to want to eat outdoors at their favorite restaurant. So this is really terrible because I feel like so many businesses could be bankrupt, could be out of business, and now some are just survived barely enough just to crawl back into business now. And now with the new closures and the stalling of the state reopenings, getting ugly out there. Yet the market has defied gravity. The stock market has continued to either stay flat in some cases. It's actually been going up a little bit. We're going to go into that. And now what you're seeing is the CDC has said they have basically lost control of the situation with how many people, how quickly the coronavirus is spreading. And experts, including Dr. Fauci, think that the real numbers are probably 100,000 plus new cases. They're just being undercounted and underreported. Not everybody is getting tested. There are a lot of people getting tested, but it's still the amount of people in this country, it's still a pretty small amount. So, and yet the market and the economy, seem this market's holding up, but it looks like the economy is tilting. Yet the stock market is holding up okay. So we're going to get into that real quick. So let's do the screen share review, and we are going to talk about this. I'm going to go through this quick because I want to talk to you about the real topic today. How much more money can the Federal Reserve possibly print? It's ginormous now. Let's get into this here, okay? Okay, share screen. Dow is off 77 points, 78 points. No big deal. S&P was up 15 points. It's 0.5%. Not terrible. Basically, okay. Hey, listen, 0.5%, I'll take it. NASDAQ, though, up almost 1%. NASDAQ hit a new high, new all-time high, new year high. So there was something working, but it's not for reasons that we want, not for the reasons we want. I'll get into that. The Russell 2000 is down almost 1%. There's a good reason for that. And the VIX, that's the fear gauge. You see the VIX over here, okay? VIX. That's the fear gauge, the volatility index. What that basically tells you is when it goes up, it means traders, it means the pros are putting on hedges. They're worried about a down market. When it starts to come down, and it's now below 30, which is something I've been talking about here, that we really need to see the VIX below 30, which would be very helpful for the stock market. It is now below 30, but it's none of this is for the right reason, and I'll tell you why. If you take a look at what worked today, every day I look at this a few times a day. I look at this more than I actually look at how the major averages are, because this tells me more about the market and the economy than just looking at the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ. This is my key dashboard. If you want it, let me know. I'll send it to you. It gives you the 11 sectors of the economy as represented by their tracking ETFs. Okay. And I use the Spiders ETFs because Spiders is really big on sector ETFs. So you've got real estate, communications, and utilities at the top. Folks, when you see utilities near the best performers of the day, that means people are worried that interest rates are going to take another leg lower. It means people are gravitating toward assets that they think are safer or more stable. But the bottom of the heat, I always say, you want to see industrials, financials, and energy lead the way. You want to see those at the top. They were at the bottom today. XLI, industrials, XLI, financials, XLE, energy. This is a pretty bad day. And this, believe it or not, as bad as it was, just because when you don't want to see these sectors go down. And if it wasn't for FedEx, today FedEx was up almost 12%. UPS is up almost 3%. If it hadn't been for those two stocks, the industrials would have been down even more. But, these are the economically sensitive stocks. You need to see financials go up, because when financials do well, it tells you that the economy is doing well. You need financials to do well because they are the central nervous system and the plumbing of the economy. So if financials aren't doing well, it's really hard for the rest of us to do well. Okay, so industrials just had a lousy day. Again, it would have been a lot worse had it not been for FedEx and UPS. And then I said to you a moment ago, the S&P and the NASDAQ were up, but not for the right reasons, or not for the reasons we like. And because the perception is this: the economy is starting to weaken. As the economy starts to weaken because the shutdowns are being halted, because Georgia and Texas, and all of a sudden, all this bullish sentiment is starting to retreat. We've got about 40% of the country with rising with shutdowns or halting their reopenings. You've got like 40 states now with a rise in COVID-19 positives. You've got a rise in hospitalizations in places like Texas and California, everywhere. And by the way, hospitalizations are a lagging indicator. So when you see a rise in COVID-19 positives, what follows is the rise in hospitalizations, ICUs, ventilators, and it goes on and on and on. So it's not a matter of any more of eliminating this virus. It's a matter of bending the curve so fewer people get it at once, so we don't overwhelm our healthcare system, so we can all receive the kind of healthcare we may need to deal with this virus. So if you look at the stocks today, though, it was the tech stocks, it was the work from home companies, the stay at home companies, and that favored FedEx and UPS. So when you see FedEx and UPS, two industrials go up, that's not necessarily a sign of a better economy. It's a sign that people are going to be ordering more and more stuff from home because, again, people are staying home. That started to reduce. Now it looks like it's going up. Tomorrow we're going to get the monthly non-farm payroll numbers, as I said at the top of the show. They could be good because most of June was pretty good. But now we have to worry about next month. So it's a very big deal. And then starting next week, we're going to start getting second quarter earnings from all the publicly traded companies, and we're going to have to see what they have to say about the quarter and about what they see for the rest of the year. But the confidence in the economy having a V-shaped recovery has really been dashed for good reason, and it keeps me pretty cautious and a lot less optimistic over the next couple of months. Okay, so now the question of the day, the reason for this whole thing. You see the background behind me, the money printing, okay? And that's the motif for today. How much more can the Fed possibly print? So let's take a look at some of the things going on today, all right? Because this is what I want to talk to you about. How is it possible that the Federal Reserve prints more and more money, seemingly endless, and it's not causing inflation? And how do we keep paying for things without having the money to pay for things? Taxes haven't gone up. The tax receipts are not up. If anything, tax receipts are down because people aren't working to pay taxes. But in any event, where is this money coming from? So let me just show you a couple of things and why I'm so hot on this. And we're going to geek out a little bit, but I'm going to do my best to make this easy. By the way, I know you're out there, so let me just take a quick look. I see some comments coming in. Okay. Inflation. Here we go. Inflation's a coming. You're right. Inflation's a coming, but Steve, we've been saying that now for 12 years, ever since Ben Bernanke started hitting the printing press with QE1, QE2, and QE3, or the quantitative easing. It's just, yes, it'll happen eventually because it's a cycle. We'll have periods of inflation. We will see it one of these days. We'll see. Short answer to your question, yes. Phil, thank you very much for always being here. You always bring very good insights, and love talking to you about this stuff. Filippo, Anthony. And we've got Scotty out there. Hi, Phillips and Mitch. I think you're saying hi to Filippo. Filippo. And money is worthless, so much inflation since 100 years ago. And Scott fixes it, Filippo. Okay, guys, good to see you. Good to see you out there. Love it. That's great stuff. Let's get into it, okay? All right. So here we are. What I was saying is I said March 23rd was a bottom. And I said, listen, if the Fed's going to and Congress are going to do so much stimulus and give away so much money that they would basically take over the economy and buy us time to get through the pandemic. And hopefully we'll have some good drug results and we'll have some, vaccine coming out soon. That's going to take a while. But the idea was we'd open the economy. Remember, we were talking about Georgia was like the first to go, and then Texas, a really big state. And, the reopenings were going smoothly, but all of a sudden the virus just started to spread all over the place again. I am not suggesting that we all stay in our homes for the rest of our lives and starve and be on government support. I don't want that. I just want to point this out. I'm a big believer. Open the economy. Do it carefully. Wear your mask. Wash your hands. Sanitize. Just be very careful. Look, eventually not all, but eventually many more of us are going to catch this virus. And hopefully we'll start to build up some kind of herd immunity and having, injections or medicines to, like a flu shot. But it's going to take a while. So the idea is we just don't want to all catch it at once because then we overwhelm the hospital system. And for those few people who do need an ICU bed or a ventilator, those are the people that we have to worry about. Okay. And that's why we need to take precautions. I'm not telling anybody to stay home, and I'm not saying we shouldn't work. I mean, I'm going out, I'm doing my thing. I'm in my office right now, and I don't want to see anyone stay home. I mean, my wife and I are ordering food all the time. We're taking care of local businesses. Okay. So sharing screen now. This is going to be good. I promise you, just stick with me. This is going to be good. All right. So let's take a look. All right. So here's the first big headline. Trump says he supports larger payments to Americans and Democrats in the next coronavirus relief bill. He says he's actually open. He supports it. He wants to do even more stimulus, bigger money. Then he says, I support actually larger numbers than the Democrats. I don't know if he's aware, but the HEROES Act, okay, the HEROES Act, which is over here. Okay, let me make this a little bit bigger because I know you guys are watching on smartphones. But the HEROES Act, which was passed by the House, the Democrat-controlled House, the HEROES Act would provide $3 trillion in tax cuts and spending. So is Trump saying that he wants to do more than $3 trillion? I don't know if the Senate would let him get away with it, but more than $3 trillion, and you're talking enormous numbers. The HEROES Act does include a lot of money to help the states. Okay. But that's what Trump says. And then in the FOMC minutes, I really hope this comes. Here it goes. This is from the FOMC minutes. Okay. Because the FOMC minutes from the Fed meeting a few weeks ago came out today, and the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee, those are the group of bankers of the Federal Reserve System who decide the path of short-term interest rates. In particular, Jerome Powell, who's the chairman of the Federal Reserve, they say, despite the comparatively bright outlook for 2020, officials noted that the fiscal help Congress provided for households, businesses, and state and local governments might prove to be insufficient. You think? Well, if the economy is shutting down now and the stimulus is pretty much gone, in 30 days from today is the end of the special unemployment, government paid unemployment benefits, not the state, the central government, $600 a week. That's coming to an end. The moratorium on evictions and foreclosures is coming to an end in a few weeks. So it looks like more stimulus will be on the way. It's going to be a hard fight because, Trump wants a big stimulus package. Part of that, I think it's understandable. There's an election coming up. Democrats want to look good and say, hey, we want to help everyone give more money, and make the Republican Senate look bad for saying, no, we're being stingy and we're not going to help. This is just the kind of stuff that goes on instead of just putting together a good bill, get it to the president for signature, and let's get money to people because, the travel and leisure space, which we're starting to reopen, if people are worried about being sick, and you've got more coronavirus cases now in the United States than ever before, that's going to hurt travel and leisure, and it's going to keep people from going out, and it's going to make people scared. Listen, a few weeks ago, people wanted to go out not because they were scared, or they weren't scared of going out. They couldn't go out because of a state mandate shutdown. Most of the state mandates are out, but now if people are afraid to go out, that's a bigger problem to tackle. And then, you have the CDC says the U.S. has way too much virus to control pandemic as cases surge across the country. So you could see how this is a problem. Okay. So I'm going to just take this off the screen for a second. So let's talk about what's going on. I wanted to clearly show you the reason why there's talk about more stimulus, both from the Federal Reserve in terms of what they're willing to do, and from Congress what that's willing to do. So we've got more stimulus on the way. What exactly is it going to look like? That's anybody's guess, but it's going to look like a load of money. But who's going to pay for it? And that's what this is about. So there's a few ways that governments could spend money. They collect money through taxes, and then they spend that money. And if the government doesn't have enough money to spend, they could either cut spending. The government could cut the spending, which is really hard to do. Uh, it could raise taxes, which is really hard to do. It could do a combination of both, which makes sense, but it's not happening. Or we could just borrow and borrow and spend, which is called MMT, modern monetary theory. It's what we have going on now. Some people don't want to call it that, but I promise you, swear, it is MMT what we have going on. The idea with that is we will borrow as much money as it takes until everybody who wants a job has a job, and until we are using the full or close to the full service and manufacturing capacity of this country. And it's just a really nice sounding way of saying, it's not just, but is it a nice way of saying we can have what we want when we want, and it's always easy to spend money and to borrow money when you know that you never have to pay it back. Senator Bernie Sanders, Rep. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, they've touted MMT as a very workable and viable economic regime for the country. And their feeling, I'm kind of paraphrasing, is since we know we're never going to pay all this money back, we might as well just go headlong into it and keep it working and take care of the economy and take care of equality and all these other things that we could do. On the other hand, do we just leave a huge debt to the next generation? We're going to talk about that. So to wrap this up, MMT is not a problem. And I wrote an article about this. Now I'll do the share screen. I'll show you this. It got a lot of play. It got a lot of good kudos from a lot of corners. Okay. Let me just make this a little bigger so you could see it on your screen. That's as big as I can make it. Okay. Is the U.S. about to become the next Zimbabwe? I asked it like that because when you think about countries with hyperinflation, you think about Zimbabwe, which is a recent event, and you think about the Weimar Republic, which was Germany, which led to the rise of Hitler and World War II. So hyperinflation has caused some horrific things in our world. But the idea, though, is that you could have you can have MMT and keep borrowing until I see out there, Mike. I'm going to put your comment out there in a moment. All right, but MMT is a few things. It says that a government budget, a government surplus, is the deficit of the private sector. So the more the government spends, the greater the government deficit, the better it is as a surplus for the private economy. Well, we've always known that. Whether if it's good or not is a different story, but in the world of MMT, it's good. Printing money won't be a problem as long as the country has the productive capacity to produce the goods and services to absorb the newly printed money. Inflation won't be a problem until a country's demand for resources and access to resources like imports, such as labor and materials, sufficiently exceed supply, sending the inflation rate to a point higher, where it harms the economy. And when inflation is too high, we have to raise taxes. And the national debt is not consequential as long as the above items are met. That's what this is about. Okay, we can have an ever-growing national debt that is never a problem as long as these conditions are met. And currently, they are being met in the United States. Japan has over 200% debt to GDP, and they don't have a problem with it, and they haven't seen any inflation. In fact, Japan is more worried about deflation than inflation. And our central bankers here, our Federal Reserve, is also worried about deflation. So it's, all the money printing in the world of MMT is that the money is being absorbed, and we have more than enough slack to absorb all this extra spending. Certainly, foreign buyers of Treasury securities don't have a problem with it because our 10-year and our 30-year Treasury bonds, are the yields are so incredibly low. So who has a problem with what we're doing? Because we don't see any problem. The problem is one day down the road. And with in a world of MMT is one day when we do have a problem in terms of inflation. Okay. In terms of inflation, then what that means is we have to raise taxes to take money out of the economy. The problem is when you see inflation, prices going up, higher taxes will make things seem more expensive. I don't think there would ever be enough political will to raise the taxes to shrink the money supply. And that's right now is my biggest critique of MMT. And, for the Weimar Republic, they were saddled with massive war reparations from World War I, and they didn't have the any production capacity or very limited production capacity because their economy was destroyed in the war. So when they started to print more money, they made their currency worthless. You read about stories of people buying, a loaf of bread with a wheelbarrow of cash. They didn't have, they couldn't meet these demands. And Zimbabwe, they were once the breadbasket of Africa. But what happened is when the Mugabe government came in after Zimbabwe fought and won their independence from England, Mugabe gave their farms, the country's farms, to the soldiers who fought for independence against England, kicked out the farmers, and it turned out the new people who took over the farms were really bad farmers, and they basically went into a severe food shortage, and they didn't have the production capacity to support all the money printing, so they went into hyperinflation. So in countries like Japan and the United States, we don't have these problems. So the issue is, since we don't have these problems, let's print and print and print. And if it becomes a problem, we could either raise taxes, maybe raise interest rates, and stop the printing and lower the money supply at that point. That's what we're doing now. We were doing it under the Obama administration. We are doing it big time under the Obama administration. We're doing it big time in the Trump administration. So it's not necessarily just a political thing. It's just that every single time Congress is short on dollars, they go to the Federal Reserve for more. And the Federal Reserve doesn't say no. So in a way, it's like the Federal Reserve is the parent that never says no. Congress is the child that's always gotten a yes. And it's created a pretty tough situation to reverse. But now you know why MMT is going to be something you're going to hear a lot more about. That is why we could have another couple of $1 trillion of money coming from Congress over the next month or two. And this is why the Fed could keep buying corporate bonds and exchange traded funds and mortgage-backed securities and treasuries, and they keep doing it. So last thing I'm going to say about this, I'm going to check the comments. I see a bunch of you out there. Thank you so much. I see Beth out there, Michelle. So I just want to say that when the way it works is the Federal Reserve will buy from, let's say, Bank ABC. They'll buy $10 billion worth of treasuries from Bank ABC. Now, Bank ABC has $10 trillion, or $10 billion, but all banks have an account at the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve will say, we'll put Federal Reserve credits electronically into your bank account with the Federal Reserve, and then you've got that $10 billion, and the Fed will just hold on to the treasuries as collateral. So where did the Federal Reserve get that $10 billion electronic credit? They just did it. They just put it there. And if the bank really wants the money, or if a foreign creditor really wants the money, and they don't want to accept the electronic Federal Reserve credits that would go into their account online with the Federal Reserve Bank, the Federal Reserve could literally print paper money just from a printer. It would be a heck of a printer, the billions of dollars. I don't know how long it takes to actually physically print billions of dollars, but they could do that. and the government accepts the those reserves as cash as well. So that's how they're able to do it, and that's why it's called money printing. The Federal Reserve really isn't printing the money; it's just giving a credit to banks in the hope that the banks will then take that credit, which is worth something, which is worth the money that they, the $10 billion in this example, and hopefully they'll lend it out. Can't force them to lend it out, but hopefully they will, and that'll create a money multiplier. The reason we say the words printing money is because if it really came down to it, the Federal Reserve could print the money if they had to. It would be trillions of dollars, but they could do it. Hopefully, we'll never get to that point where we actually have to test it out. That's what it's all about. Hey, Michelle, good to see you. And I'll take whatever you don't want, LOL. I'm with you. I'm with you. I just have to do this. Hey, girl, good to see you. Yeah, so listen, if the Fed is giving us money, if the government's going to send us all another $1,200 stimulus check, take it. All right? It's yours to take. Beth is out there. Great to see you, Beth. Haven't caught one of your lives in ages. Glad to see you. Still going live every day. Beth, yes, I am. It is grueling. I stopped about 3 weeks ago. I stopped doing them on Fridays just because it's hard to get an audience. I think people have better things to do in the nice weather. And I still put out my blast email on Friday. So I'm just doing them every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'll probably get back into doing these on Fridays in October. And I'll be here on a Friday if something crazy is going on in the world. Michael is out there. Hey, Mike, I didn't miss your comment here. The Federal Reserve, in my humble opinion, IMHO, hashtag IMHO, okay, can and will keep printing money. Agreed. While it may save us now, at some point in the future, particularly when interest rates rise, it may not destroy us, but might potentially cripple us very badly. Agreed 100%. Who else? Beth is at the Filippo says, Mitch, it sounds like you're saying long-term everything is going to be okay. Buy the dips. Yes. And like, here's the thing. I put this out, some material out last week. You don't fight the Fed. And I have my bouts of caution, like we were talking about last week when we had those down days and, okay. I can't say as a financial advisor to clients, we're just going to be all in 100% because the Fed's got our backs. Because what if it doesn't work? So I still have to have that. You understand, I know, but you still have to have that caution with people. But don't fight the Fed. The Fed is going to keep pumping money into the economy until we get through this pandemic. Could they do another $10 trillion, another $20 trillion before this whole thing is over? It's at this point, it is conceivable that they could do it. In 08, 09, no, it wasn't conceivable. But once a new program is adopted by policymakers and it's kind of scary and new, the next time around, not only is it expected, but it's expected that it's a tool that you should use, with no end in sight. Okay. Got it. Celebrate my 1 year. Yes. Beth Granger, a good friend of mine. Oh my God, it's already July 16th. She's celebrating her 1 year anniversary in live July 16th. Beth is the first person I knew who was going live on LinkedIn. And she's consistently stayed there. I'm using StreamYard and some other tools because Beth advised me to do so. And I'm very grateful to that because it's been great advice. So if you have any questions about going live, LinkedIn, talk to Beth Granger. She knows her stuff. It's really remarkable and how current she is and a wealth of knowledge. Okay. Mitch saying, okay, so Filippo, when the money gets sent to the banks, doesn't that make our existing dollars less valuable? So far, it hasn't. But one of the reasons why the money hasn't made the dollars less valuable is because the dollars actually are not making it into the economy. That's why banks are so flush with cash. They're hoarding the money. If the money made it out into the economy like a multiplier effect, that would be a different story. But it hasn't happened because the money is not, there's no velocity. The money is not actually being circulated. Would love higher interest rates. That's what the country needs. Listen, we've been trying zero bound interest rates. They tried it in Europe. They tried negative rates in Europe. They tried it in Japan. It hasn't worked yet. What they did though is they succeeded in destroying their banking sector, which is like the heart of the economy. So maybe interest rates need to go up, not down. Eventually, somebody will do the right thing when there's enough pain. Remember Paul Volcker? He jacked up interest rates in 1980. Okay. Remember in 1980, I was like 13 years old. But anyway, that's the story. Joshua, I could use the extra work. Why not, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks so much for watching, Josh. Filippo, caution is good, but depending on horizon for clients, you definitely need to be realistic based on risk. Absolutely. Listen, risk tolerance, it's determined by your time horizon. The longer your time horizon, the higher your risk tolerance. It doesn't work like that in a linear fashion for everybody, but you've got to look at the goals. You could have a 30-year time horizon to retirement, but a 2-year time horizon until your child goes to college. So 2 totally different scenarios. So I take all of that into account. But yes, you are absolutely correct. Yes, sir. Beth, oh, thank you. You're very welcome, Beth. I really mean it, Beth. I've called you on your cell phone like so many times, like, oh no, what do I do? This happened. Oh no, what do I do? That happened. Oh no, my StreamYard's not working. How do I get the green screen back? So many times, and you're always helpful, and always appreciate that. Josh, wouldn't taxing companies that have their headquarters overseas be a safer option? Well, the issue is that companies make money overseas. Let's say a company makes money in another country, and they pay taxes in that country, then they repatriate the money, and then the U.S. says, now you have to pay taxes here. So if you taxed it, which happened, by the way, and they're bringing money back here, they actually had a holiday to bring money back here. It's tough to say. I think either way, taxes are taxes. And if you change the tax policy here, companies will try to do what they can to save that money overseas. If you tax them overseas, they'll see what else they could do. There's no easy way out. And that's why I think tax policy really needs to be something that is cut and dry. And if we can do that, then there wouldn't be any of this redundancies and what's the word? I don't know, inconsistencies in the tax code. Okay, great. Filippo, great show, Mitch. Great. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. All right. I'm going to sign off. I don't think I'll be here live tomorrow. If you want my blast email and you're not receiving it, just hit me with a DM and we'll catch up. I'll get your email and I'll send it to you. If something crazy happens in the market tomorrow because of the non-farm payrolls tomorrow morning, then I will be back. So let's hope it's a nice calm day. So I could get out a little early and maybe take my kids to the beach. All right. Speak to you soon. Thanks all. Have a wonderful Independence Day.